everyone, and welcome to Seems Legal. This is the most exciting Seems Legal ever because we're at Lords and we're doing it in person for the first time, Fraser.
It's brilliant. We've obviously been on Zoom for a while, and it's lovely to have you here at Lords and to do this face to face for a change.
Oh, I feel emotional hearing that. It is beautiful to be here. Fraser Stewart, the guardian of the laws, here at the home of cricket. You've got your little law book here as well, always handy. This is where it all happens, of course, where all the workings of going to preparing the laws are made. But we've got an interesting one to chat with you about today. It harkens back to the finals day of the Blast a couple of weeks ago at Edgbaston, where the final finished in the most chaotic flurry of confusion and excitement and things going one way or the other.
So Hampshire were playing Lancashire. It came down to the last ball, and Nathan Ellis was bowling for Hampshire, and Richard Gleeson was batting for Lancashire. And I think they needed 4 off of one ball, which clean bowled the batter, and there were huge celebrations, and the fireworks went off, and the game was over until the TV replay showed that it was actually a no ball. So they had to wait for all the smoke to clear off the fireworks, and for the Hampshire players to come down, and so then it went effectively it was 2 needed off the last ball. Ellis had to go back, and Gleeson was again on strike, and he bowled the ball. The batter Gleeson went for a swing, and he missed it, and it went through to Ben McDermott. The Hampshire fielders sort of started to celebrate. The batters ran through for a bye, so Tom Hartley, who was at the non-strikers end, he ended up sort of ran through past the stumps at the wicket-keeper's end before the wicket-keeper McDermott got there. He then sort of went probably 3 or 4 yards behind the stumps and just sort of hung his head and just sort of stood in shame as the not in shame but in disappointment. Shame's the wrong word. As the Hampshire guys were celebrating. McDermott did dislodge the bails at the striker's end, but only after Hartley had made his ground, so there was no question of a run out there. Meanwhile, Gleeson, who was the original striker, he'd scampered one. And then turned for a second run. As he was making his way down, he could see that Hartley was still standing quite a long way, behind where the stumps at the other end. So he sort of starts to slow up. Then the umpire, Graham Lloyd, he signals a bye, which is actually really important. Hartley sees what Gleeson was doing, and maybe Gleeson said, "Look, run." So he then sort of comes and starts running at the other end. McDermott, the keeper, I hope you're keeping track of this.
It's complicated.
McDermott, the keeper, sees what's happening, so he then runs up to the other end, where Mason Crane, in celebration, had pulled one of the stumps out of the ground, but there were still 2 stumps standing with a bail on. So McDermott ran up. All he had to do was take the bail off the 2 remaining stumps, but instead he took a stump out of Mason Crane's hand, which wasn't in the ground, and sort of put the ball next to that. Now, that doesn't constitute putting the wicket down lawfully. And then there was just lots of people standing around scratching their heads, but the umpire said, no, we'd already signalled the bye, that the game is over. And the law 2.13, which is in here, will say that certain signals are given while the ball is still in play, such as out, or wide, and then repeated to the scorers in case of wide. But a bye is only signalled once the ball is dead. And we reviewed the footage and could quite clearly see that Graham Lloyd, the bowler's end umpire, he signalled when Hartley was still standing well back behind the stumps with his head down. Gleeson was just sort of slowing down in his second run, and I think the umpire made the call under law 20.1, which is the dead ball law, that the ball was finally settled in the hands of the keeper, and effectively the game was over. So he signalled the bye. So once the bye is signalled, the ball must have been dead, and therefore all the shenanigans at whether the stump was the wicket was put down correctly at the bowler's end was irrelevant, because the ball was already dead and the game was over with Lancashire 1 run short. So it was quite confusing. You could see why Lancashire felt slightly aggrieved perhaps, but I think when you look at it and look at the result, and it seems that that was probably the right result, the right team. That wasn't really a two-bye situation, but I think teams do need to be careful when they're in the field and winning a tight game, just to try to hold off celebrating until they're very sure that the ball is dead. I know it's hard, easy to say here, but in the heat of the moment, but try and just hold off celebrating until you know that the ball is very certainly dead and that you have very certainly won.
Now, because we've talked about this before, and you actually do see it a lot in cricket in various tournaments when it comes to finals, and it's even a thing in amateur cricket as well, and grassroots cricket. Is that something that you try to get the message out there, or you hear about quite a bit?
We've certainly seen that. There was one that did the rounds a year or two ago on social media from an amateur league where
Mohammad Kashif, in he comes. Wicket keeper just has to keep the ball in his hands. What?
Oh, I love that! Now that is inspired.
And in that one, I think it was different because both batters always considered the ball was very much in play, and the fielding side as well. The keeper could see what was going on, and it was quite clever, ingenious, if you like, by the fielding side. What the wicketkeeper should have done is just thrown it up to that far end straight away, and obviously not have a fumble. But yeah, our message certainly is just make sure that the ball is dead before you start celebrating, and because then we'll get the right result.
Might have to communicate as well to the people who operate the fireworks to make sure the ball is dead before letting them off as well. I think it's hard in those situations, isn't it? But what can you do? You wouldn't want it to happen in a World Cup final.
No, that's one of the problems with the umpires not calling the no ball on field. You do have this delay. The moment of theatre of taking a wicket is sometimes lost a bit, and obviously a situation like that, the Hampshire's balloon was very well and truly burst at that moment. But thankfully for the bowler Nathan Ellis and for the Hampshire team, it didn't cost them. But for the Lancashire team, they're obviously losing that closely will always going to be difficult.
One thing I wanted to pick up on, you said about touching the stump with the ball and the stump had been pulled out. Why is that not, like, how does that work? Because you do sometimes see players pull a stump out and that's enough to affect a run out, or...
Yeah, so effectively the law states you have to put the wicket more down than it currently is. So obviously most of the time you've got 3 stumps, 2 bails. All you have to do is take 1 bail off. Right. If 1 bail is already off, all you have to do is take the other bail off.
Yep.
If there's no bails on, the fielding side has the option of putting a bail back on and then taking it off again, or they can pull a stump out of the ground and hold with the ball and stump at the same time, and you can do that. And obviously, as long as there's 1 stump still in the ground, you have the option of doing that. If there's no stumps in the ground,
yes,
you have, it has happened. You have to put a stump back in the ground, but back in the ground where it should be, not 3 yards away over there.
Right.
So back into one of the original holes and then pull it out again.
Wow.
So there is always, as long as there's 1 stump in the ground, there's always a way to do it. If there's no stump, you have to put 1 back in. But yeah, the key thing is you've got to put it more down than it is at the moment you're trying to do it.
I bet you there are people there who did not know that situation. That was really interesting to me, Fraser. So if anyone wants to check out and read those laws again that we've talked about today, what do we have?
So that last one is Law 29, putting the wicket down. The umpire signals is Law 2.13, and the dead ball law is Law 20, and the one we were looking at there was 20.1.
Okay, there you go. Go check it out. Make sure if you've got any questions for us here at Sporting News with our Seams Legal series, please do give us a tweet. Follow Home of Cricket, follow me and Sporting News as well. Let us know what you think and if you have any questions. And look, hopefully we'll get to do this again while I'm here.
Well, while it's summer and you're over here, let's get some more in.
I'm going to walk around and relive old times. Thanks for joining us.